Welcome to Bit Investment Channel. This video is a special video that I have a great opportunity to interview Rob. Rob, he is a co-founder of Zencash. Let's check it out. Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you to you, Rob, to accept my invitation to interview. My audience would like to know about the Zencash, and it's such a great opportunity that you accept my invitation to explain about your technology and your origination of the Zencash. And first question, I would like to know your organization structure or your team, and what is your position in the team, and the origination of the Zencash.
Well, first of all, Ben, thank you for having me on the show. For us, this is always a good opportunity to kind of get out there and reach more people and let them know what we're doing. So I guess my position on the team is I'm one of the co-founders of the project, and I lead the team currently right now. So we have about 50 people on the team, and we're organized into 7 divisions. So about half of our people are full-time workers, and half of them are about part-time workers. And of that, we have 7 divisions. So we're organized like a very professional organization where we have an engineering division. Within the engineering division, we have our software development, we have quality assurance and testing, we have our infrastructure and IT division. We have then a business development division that goes out every day and tries to get different business for us, get on different exchanges. So I think this is a really important part of what we do, is to get out there and build these relationships with different organizations. We have a big marketing division, and within marketing we have like our creative marketing, we have graphic design, we have quantitative marketing, we have a research and development division as well, where we actually employ scientists to do forward-looking research on pushing the kind of technology that we're using, so that we think we're going to be competitive in the next 3 or 5 or 10 years. And to do that is, I think you have to focus resources on science and development, research and development. So we do that. We have a whole product and user experience division. So it's really important to us that our users actually like our products, and that we take care of our users and our community. So what we do, actually, we were the first cryptocurrency to have our own customer support department. So that's under the user experience division. So now what we do is we get feedback from our community, and we use that feedback to make our products better. So there's a nice relationship there. And we also have a finance and accounting division. So we want to be professional there, where we have a professional accounting system. We have a former hedge fund guy who manages our portfolio. We do budgeting, forecasting, to make sure that everything that we're doing is like very professional and I think very long-term oriented.
I saw in your website, and there are your team spread around the world. And how can you manage or have a meeting, or how can you govern them and organize them? So fantastic.
It's hard. Yeah, I'll tell you, it would be easier if we were all in one office, right? But we're not, and I think that there's benefits to being all around the world, because now we have a global perspective. And we get feedback, and we get community perspective from people all over the world, instead of just, say, a few Americans, right, or a few Europeans. We want people all over the world to join the project, because we want to be truly a global human project. So it's difficult, or I should say it's challenging, but I think we've done a good job in overcoming the challenges. So we have a variety of communication tools that we use. We do actually once or 3 times a week, we do a team stand-up meeting, which is about 20 minutes. We have the whole, or a large part of the team We use Discord for that, which is also our major community interface tool. And our team gets on Discord in a private channel, and we go through the divisions. We say, okay, engineering, what are you guys doing? Product development, what are you guys doing? You know, like marketing, what are you guys doing? And we go through 3 times a week for a little bit, you know, and then we have each of the divisions has their own teams that they manage, and they have their own meetings. So, you know, and then the leadership on the project, we get together and we're in constant communication with each other, and we're in constant communication with the community, getting feedback, trying to understand what do people want to see us do. And then every 2 weeks we do a really big live stream where it's like for a traditional corporation, you would have like a quarterly board review where the leadership on the company would brief the board directors. What we do is we're responsible to the community. We don't have a special board, right? So we brief the community every 2 weeks on what we're doing, and we live stream it, and we open it up where anyone could do a Q&A session and ask us anything that they want and get clarification. So this is part of our effort to try to be as transparent as possible.
I heard you say you are like the first cryptocurrency that have support. What is the purpose of support? I'm quite confused. I cannot use your coin. I can call or email to your support to, hey, use this.
Yeah.
What is the purpose?
Yeah. So okay. So the number one purpose is to say, like, we respect all of our users, and you know the fact that cryptocurrency is you're dealing with money. And if something goes wrong, it's nice to have someone to talk to, right? Like if you have a problem with your wallet and you can't get your money, or maybe you made a mistake and something went wrong, or any of our products, we want someone there that you can talk to who can help you and who's knowledgeable and technical, right? So, and what we realized is that, you know, as we try to go to a broader market, and we're not just going to people who understand cryptocurrency, but we're going to people who may want to get into cryptocurrency, is for them, it's very important. So for you and I, we're fine with any kind of cryptocurrency wallet. We know what we're doing, right? We're professionals in this industry. But if you look at like a random person who's never heard about cryptocurrency, and they try out a product and they're confused, they don't know what a private key is, right? I think it's very important to offer them help, right? So that's what we do.
Great. Another question is, Zencash is not have ICO. I'm not sure how can you pay for the programmer, or everybody 50 guys in your team has a belief or have the same goal. So how everybody sit into the same team and develop? how can you manage the source of funds? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great question. So, you know, open source is great where you have a lot of people that want to contribute for free. But the reality is, if you want to build a professional team that's constantly working every day, you need to pay them. So, so we pay them. We pay them market rates. You know, so people that we have on our team are very passionate about the project, but the reality is they have families and they have to pay their bills, so they need to get paid. You know, when we first launched, we called our project, or our motto was we're Dashifying Zcash. So what we did was we took the funding model that Dash uses, where every block that's mined, there's a little bit of Zen that goes into a community fund. And we use that community fund to pay people and to do marketing, to hire engineers, to pay for research and development. So it actually works really well. And also, I have to say, it makes a lot more economic sense to do this, because in ICO, you get a whole bunch of money up front, and then you have to think as a manager, what do you do with this money? Do you spend it all right now? Do you spend it over a 2-year period, right? Do you spend it over a 20-year period? How do you figure out how to spend your money in a way that makes sense for the long term? I don't think that anyone knows that. So I think it's actually a little bit irresponsible to take so much money up front and then not, you know, That's just not the way business used to work. The way business used to work before Bitcoin was, and before ICOs was, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a really good idea, you go and you ask for a little bit of funding, and then you build something, you get some customers, and then you ask for a little bit more funding, right? And then each step of the way, you're getting funding because you're proving yourself and being successful. Whereas here, the ICO thing is people want a lot of money up front before even proving themselves. And I think it's going to cause economic problems in the long term, and I don't think it's sustainable. So our funding model is sustainable because we get funding every single block that gets mined for the next 100 years. We have a budget. So I think that's really important. And, we can't spend our money 50 years in the future today. We know that we have money 50 years in the future, and that's important so that we're sustainable. And we want to be here in the next 100 years or 200 years. We're not just doing this for the next 1 to 2 years to make a bunch of money and then go away. We're trying to build a real ecosystem here that's sustainable.
You mean that it's a tertiary system, right? That you try to explain me is that the tertiary system that it has a fund every block that the miner found, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we know we have funding forever, or until the year 2150 or so. So for the next 130 years, we have funding.
Actually, I love this idea because it's designed for long term. And,
exactly.
For holder or for miner, I can make sure the developer not take the money and run away.
Exactly. But that is so important, and I wish more projects did it, because and there's some people who are going to be scammers or fraud. Yeah. They're going to take money and go away. But I think that's not most people. Most people are going to try to use it and do a good job, but they're not going to know how to spend their money over the next 100 years, right? They'll spend it over the next 3 years or 5 years, and then what? Then they have no more money, right? So
the next question, I think, is quite hard to explain. The next question is, why do we need Zencash? Why? What is your value proposition?
That's the ultimate question, right? Is why. So for us, I mean, we can answer that on a technical level, and then there's more than just technical stuff for projects. So, I mean, how do we differentiate ourselves technically? What we did was we brought a lot more privacy into this industry. So our two big things for technology were privacy and usability. So what we did was we took the technology that Zcash pioneered, and Zcash has some amazing scientists and cryptographers and engineers and leadership. And what we did was we took what they started with ZK snarks, the zero-knowledge cryptography, and then we extended it in a different direction. And the direction that we took, it's just different. It's not like, one is better, one's worse, or we need one, but we don't need the other. We're just filling a gap in this industry, in this ecosystem that other people weren't doing. So we're focusing really hard on product development to make things really easy for people. You can see with our customer support, we're trying to be the good guys in the market that people can trust. We have a good corporate culture, or not corporate, we have a good community culture. We're very helpful. We built a culture of respect for everyone. And so if you look at our technology differentiates itself, in the privacy area and then the product areas. But I think our culture is the big differentiator. And why do people need us? Maybe they don't, but a lot of people like having us around. And, they like the fact that we're building this very inclusive, open culture where we want to help people all over the world. And we're trying to build a peer-to-peer inclusive economic system, but also a nice organization where people just voluntarily help each other. So it's a really nice project, actually, I would say. The technology is really cool and fun, and we're advancing actually in a whole bunch of different directions that are incredible. Like we're building a big voting system in our protocol, which I think is going to be the best in the industry, so that the users of the community can decide how we allocate resources and what decisions we make. So I think that's really important, to give the community members all over the world a voice, and a real voice where they can actually decide what we do. And then the other thing that we're doing, the big research this year, is we're pioneering what we call a block DAG. So there's this whole directed acyclic graph technology, this graph technology like the IOTA is using, for instance. What we're doing is we're taking some academic protocols that were basically a whole bunch of math proofs, and we're translating these math proofs into code and implementing what I think will be the future of this technology. So why are we here? What are we trying to do? We're pushing technology, and we're trying to give people a voice all around the world and give them dignity and an economic opportunity. So it's a fun project, and I think we have a nice niche in the industry that's growing very fast, because when people see what we're doing and they see how serious our team is and the partnerships we have, the research we're doing, I think they realize that we're a very important project.
I'm not sure the Zencash is the origination of the Zencash is come from the Zero Coin project, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
So that was the 2013 white paper that first pioneered the use of zero-knowledge cryptography in cryptocurrencies. But it was proposed for use with Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin core developers rejected it.
Oh,
so they didn't want to add that. Yeah. So that's when Zuko and his team then said, okay, well, Bitcoin developers rejected it. We're going to fork Bitcoin and do it ourselves. And that's where they created Zcash.
I never heard it before, but how can they think? I think the foundation of freedom is privacy. Why they reject it?
Yeah. So I have to say that there's 1,000 different technology paths that we can go, 1,000 different directions we can take. And sometimes you just have to make a decision. You say, this is what we're focusing on. And what the Bitcoin developers did was they made a decision and said, well, we're not focusing on zero-knowledge cryptography. We're focusing on this other stuff. And that was okay. They had some really big scaling issues that were bothering the community at the time. It was a real problem, right? So they had other problems to and this is why I think that altcoins make so much sense, is because we don't have to wait for one single group of developers to do everything. We can say, well, hey, we think that these other things are important, and we're going to go do them ourselves. And I think the whole society benefits, because now we have 1,000 different experiments doing different things. Some of them are just complete copies, but others are doing original work in different directions. And this makes all of society better off.
Okay. Last week, I saw in the white paper, and you have the new one. And in the new one, you state about the supernode.
Yes.
I would like you to explain about the secure node and supernode. What is the purpose of it, and what is the difference between secure node and supernode?
Yeah. So the whole philosophy here of why do we want all these nodes around the world, first of all. So what we realized was what Satoshi did with Bitcoin was brilliant in terms of aligning the economic incentives for miners to do the right thing. So all of the Bitcoin protocol rewards miners, and that's it. So developers don't get rewarded, marketers don't get rewarded, people who run a full node don't get rewarded. So what we realized was there's a whole bunch of stakeholders in this ecosystem that aren't being rewarded for doing work and helping out, contributing. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to spread around the economic rewards to make different people get rewarded, to have incentives to participate. And one of the big things that we did was we created this secure node system. So we wanted people who run a full node, which is basically a complete copy of our software. And then we added some other requirements on top of that. Any kind of the software running around the world, we want, right, or the software running on a high-quality machine, I should say. So we started adding hardware requirements, processing requirements, because we have very high computational requirements on our protocol for these zero-knowledge cryptography transactions. Like if you want to do a fully private transaction, it takes a lot of computational power. So what we didn't want were people setting up nodes that didn't have the computational power to process transactions. So we started levying these requirements, and then we called our requirements a secure node system. And secure node because we also put SSL or TLS certificates into our protocol. So now we have a point-to-point encryption from a client-to-node or node-to-node encryption. So what we do, we thought this was the next step in the privacy war, basically, where, yes, sure, our Bitcoin is kind of secure. Zcash with zero-knowledge cryptography is super secure and private. But let's go one step further, and let's have point-to-point encryption, a tunnel through which all of these transactions occur. So that's what we do, and we required node operators who wanted to set these up to hold 42 Zen, which is at the time a very small amount. It was like $120 to run a secure node, and then they get paid to run the secure node. So they're adding security to our network by these kind of point-to-point encryption tunnels. They're adding more copies of the software into the world, which is really important because if at any point you say some country makes Zen illegal and they try to shut down all of the nodes, well, you want to have as many nodes running around the world as possible so that our users can actually connect and you have a functioning network. But even more long-term, we were thinking really long-term. And you'll see a lot of the things that we do, it's really long-term thinking. So now we're building out this application platform. And the platform that we have now is we have the most nodes. We have more nodes than Bitcoin. So now we're going to start using these nodes to run applications on top of them. So now we have this huge network that now we can start asking it to do stuff like running computation for rent. Or big organizations can now lease computation from our network. We can run distributed apps on top of our nodes, and the node operators themselves, we hope, this is what our vision is. The node operators can get paid to run these different apps. Users will be happy because there's more apps in the ecosystem. Developers will be happy because they're making money by making apps and contributing. But then we realized our secure node system is in a way vulnerable and not. This isn't our long-term vision the way we have it right now, because our secure node system, we have server clusters all over the world that are tracking all of our secure nodes. So basically we have servers tracking all of these other nodes around the world, but the servers themselves are not part of the long-term vision because they're vulnerable. Like, this is a point of failure. We could be censored if someone were to shut down our servers. Right. So what we're doing now with the version 2 of the system is we're migrating all of the tracking and payment logic on chain. So this is where supernodes come in. So now we're going to have a special node type called a supernode that has a 500 Zen stake requirement, and it's going to have more hardware requirements to run because it's going to be asked to do more work. And then these supernodes are going to start tracking all of the other secure nodes on the system. So the supernodes have work to basically manage all of the secure nodes and track them. But the cool thing is that it's all decentralized at this point. And it's all automated and decentralized. You don't have to rely on us to run servers. So that's a really important part. And then we're actually going to introduce side chains on our supernodes. So our supernodes are going to run side chains that are going to have much more types of capabilities than our main chain is. So it's a very exciting time for the project, actually. But for us, it's a very methodical. Like, our model, the way we operate is we try to build things or get to a sufficiently mature perspective first, and then talk about it. But our long-term plans, I think, are very exciting. It's just we try not to overhype them.
I heard you say about sidechain. Sidechain. What is sidechain?
Yeah. So our main chain is just the traditional blockchain right now, and we're exploring different protocol structures. Like, we're exploring a tree structure, this DAG, and there's a lot you can do with that. But there's a lot more that we want to do on this ecosystem. So we actually want to build a platform system, but we don't want to do it in a way that, say, Ethereum has done, or Neo, or these other projects where they build the logic into the protocol itself, the full scripting logic. So you can do all these smart contracts and everything in the core protocol. But what this does is it slows everything down, and it means that every scripting function that you add to your protocol adds a new potential attack vector into your system. So every now and then there's a big hack scandal with Ethereum. Like, something goes wrong, someone wrote a smart contract that has some flawed logic, or hacker was able to exploit some code. We don't want that. We want to be a very secure system. So security is the most important thing for us. So we don't want to degrade the security of the main chain, and we're going to build side chains, which are basically a completely different chain that's run by our supernodes. It'll be even in a different programming language, and it'll have even a different consensus protocol. So we'll be able to do massive amounts of transactions on these side chains very rapidly. And we'll be able to do all different types of like smart contracting, a whole bunch of like distributed app or DApp development we're going to do on the side chains. We're even thinking that we could run a decentralized exchange on our sidechain network, because the sidechains now will probably be some version of proof of stake, because we don't want the block confirmation time constraint when you have this kind of sidechain structure. We have the proof of work on the main chain, and that's awesome. It adds a lot of the best security characteristics you can have on your main chain. But on the sidechains, we think that there's a little bit of a trade-off for usability and throughput on the system that makes sense with proof of stake, and maybe even a delegated proof of stake mechanism where the supernodes themselves are the delegates of the community. So it's a very interesting architecture that we're working on right now, but it opens up a whole new world of possibility for the project that goes way beyond just being a cryptocurrency.
Sound interesting.
Yeah.
Sidechain. I heard this word many times, but I don't understand what that's purpose of the sidechain. And another feature in terms of the security features, I'm not sure what is Zencash has the different security feature different with other coin or other privacy coin.
Yeah, so the big differentiator for us, we're part of the whole zero-knowledge class of cryptography coins that are out there. So zero-knowledge cryptography, I think, is the most advanced, or hands down, the most advanced privacy tool in the world, known to humanity. There's just no way to beat it. So what a lot of the other privacy coins do is, so initially, like when Bitcoin was launched, people realized, well, at first people thought Bitcoin's anonymous. And then we realized it's not anonymous, because you can, as soon as you put a name to an address, you can trace every transaction they've ever done, because there's a chain, and the chain is always public. So it's not very private. And then people started mixing transactions. So they said, okay, well, if we just mix these UTXOs or these, say just mixed transactions, then it's more confusing for people, so you can't exactly trace who is who. But of course, very quickly, academics realized, no, we can just reverse the mixing. It's not very secure. You can always reverse the mixing. But then you can reverse an external, like an off-chain mixing, and that's what people were doing, these off-chain tumblers. And then people realized, well, let's do an on-chain within the protocol tumbler. So let's force all transactions to just tumble with each other all the time. And that's very anonymous. And that's what CryptoNote did. And that's where the whole class of coins that basically the Monero, leads the pack in that class of coins that runs CryptoNote. That's what they do, is they have an internal mixing engine that tries to obfuscate UTXOs. So that you can't really trace who is who. But academics think that that's actually even vulnerable itself, because it's still a mixing engine. And then came along the zero coin protocol, which actually looked to apply zero-knowledge cryptography to Bitcoin, which was a very elegant protocol. The Bitcoin developers rejected it, so then Zcash developers actually took the protocol and improved it a bit. And then they launched that, and that I think was a breakthrough in the industry. Where now zero knowledge cryptography, it's real simply, it's zero knowledge. Truly, you have zero knowledge of any transaction, any aspect of a transaction that people don't want you to have knowledge of. So, for instance, if I send you some Zen using this, these ZK snarks, we call them zero knowledge, proofs. People will be able to see I sent you a valid transaction, so it's not a double spend. It's completely valid. It conformed to consensus requirements or requirements. They see the transaction occur, but they can't see that I sent it. They can't see that you received it. They have no idea how much money was in there or how much Zen was in there. So it's really a huge breakthrough. And the way that they do that technically is you dissociate kind of the coin layer from what we call a note commitment layer. So basically, you can take like our normal Bitcoin-like protocol, which has these UTXOs, and they have a Merkle tree or Merkle roots that kind of track all the transactions that have ever occurred on the chain. But then what we have is a completely different layer on top of this that we call a commitment set. So basically, when you want to send a snark-based transaction, you pop a coin out of the normal Bitcoin-like layer into the node commitment layer, and it's kind of stuck in there in this like cloud, this overarching the rest of the chain. And whenever you want to use, and then you could send it in there, and no one can know what's going on with it. But as soon as you sent it in there, no one knows where it went. And then whenever you want to use it, you pop it back out into the normal layer and use it. But when you pop it back out, no one knows where this coin came from. So if you're just an outside observer looking at our chain, you're just seeing these coins go from like the normal layer to the commitment layer, just kind of going back and forth, but you have no idea where they're coming from. So as coins are coming out of the node commitment set, you have no idea where they came from to begin with. So it's the ultimate privacy preserving mechanism for this industry. So that's the main technology that differentiates us from the other privacy coins in the market.
Nowadays, every coin or every token talk about the scalability because because in the real world this problem is show like Ethereum that implement that with the crypto kitty, and it's such a a kitty attack the capacity of the blockchain is full. So I would like your opinion about your concept will be solve this problem in the future.
So that's an awesome question. We actually have two ways to solve scalability. One, so we're tackling this like scientists. We have scientists on our project, and we're doing science research on this block DAG protocol that I mentioned previously, where instead of having to do one block at a time in a chain, you just generalize the structure where it's like a tree, and you could do a dozen or 24 blocks in parallel to each other. So basically, instead of just every miner referring back to one block, every miner refers to every known tip in a tree structure. So we could do a lot of transactions or a lot of blocks in parallel. So that's one way to scale. But the other huge aspect of scaling is our sidechaining solution. So for instance, in the CryptoKitty example with Ethereum, we wouldn't run CryptoKitties on our main chain. We would run CryptoKitties on a side chain. Yeah, exactly. So now we have side chains that have a whole bunch of scaling and throughput capabilities and storage capabilities or whatnot. So that's how we compartmentalize it that way. And I think we massively increase the throughput of the main chain with this block DAG protocol. But then we introduce side chains for all of like this big platform development stuff and smart contracting, that can really eat up a lot of your bandwidth on your network. So I think it's a very elegant multi-tiered solution for scaling.
It seems like your main chain use the proof of work, and the side chain will use the proof of stake. You separate the layer between the root and the side chain. Sound interesting? Exactly.
And then you just have some consensus mechanism so that the chains can talk to each other to kind of publish what you have to publish across the chain.
So actually, I saw you have a lot of plan to implement the product in the future. What is the main product that you will launch? I saw in your website it has like a 4 pillar. It has 4 pillar. I'm not sure. Is that for core product or it has another product? But I would like you to explain about your product and current product and the future product that you will be launched.
Yeah, so the first set of products that you see, or basically what you see on the website, are the first generation of products that we have, and we're almost done actually building them all out in just like 1 year of operating. So they're all focused on privacy because we want to build the infrastructure so that now we lay the infrastructure and then we can start building stuff on top of the infrastructure. And the infrastructure that we wanted was a highly private infrastructure, very privacy oriented. So we have private transactions. We have a messaging protocol so people can message each other privately. So that was Zen Chat or Zen Talk, that app that you saw. A publishing tool. We want, actually, this is one that we've actually held off on because we think it's maybe more appropriate on a side chain. But it's called ZenPub. It was supposed to be a distributed file storage system where users now could publish data in a safe and secure way. But of course, actually, we have two different solutions there. One is a distributed file storage system on our chain, but the other is interfacing with IPFS, the Interplanetary File Storage System, or file system. So that was one way where within our wallets, we want people, say if you're like a journalist in a repressive country and you're trying to publish some information that's really important to get out to the world, we wanted to create a way for that journalist to be able to publish information securely without fear of retaliation. So that was the idea behind ZenPub. But now we're building out a whole bunch of other products that are really going to reside on our side chains. But actually, what I should probably mention is we have a whole set of products coming out this next month. And so basically, all new wallets. We want our wallets to be nice and modern and easy to use and geared for like a new user of cryptocurrency. So we have these really cool wallets coming out this next month in May. So I'm very excited for that. That'll be nice. And this goes towards like we're trying to be very usable, or we want to have really simple products that people can use.
And back to the smart contract and dApp.
Yeah.
What is the programming language that you will use or for the developer for implement? Like Ethereum use the Solidity, but
yes, so I can tell you, we're not going to create. Yeah, we're not going to create our own programming language like Ethereum did. Actually, this is still part of the engineering trade space that we have options on. The option that our engineers like the most right now seems to be Golang. So writing everything in Go would be, I think, for me, very fascinating as well, because it opens up our app layer to a different developer community. So right now, our main chain is written in C++, but if we do the side chains in Golang, that's, I think, a very interesting combination. So that's not guaranteed yet, but that's the solution that the engineers seem to like most.
But if some organization that already implement the dApp, the application on Ethereum, do you have a tools for them to export? It's like, oh, Zencash is very fast platform and they want to convert. Do you have tools?
So you just gave me an amazing idea. Actually, no, this is really amazing. Thank you for contributing to Zencash because that is brilliant. Honestly, that is so brilliant. We need to do that. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to add that to our development specification. We have to do it. We absolutely have to. It's brilliant. Thank you.
You must do. You may have a lot of kitty in your platform.
If we do, I'll email you and we'll come out. We'll have a drink over it.
I think about last month, I saw you to talk with Charles from IOHK, and both of you talk about the partnership. Can you explain me about that purpose of the partnership program?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Charles Hoskinson, one of the guys who founded Ethereum, he was part of the early BitShares, creating that. And most recently, he and his team launched Cardano. So I think that's a very popular project that people know about. But what he has, actually, Charles runs a company called IOHK, which is a huge research and development company. I think the best in the industry, hands down the best, where he's brought together these brilliant scientists and engineers from all over the world to really think about some of the biggest problems that we have in the industry, like scaling, chain, proof of stake in a safe. So they're doing some very important research and development. And what we have with Charles, so Charles is an advisor on Zen, first of all, and he's a good friend of mine. And we also then work as a partnership with IOHK. So IOHK does two of our most important research projects for us right now. So our engineers work with the IOHK scientists on prototyping a governance system. So we're taking some game theory economics research and using our cryptography in creating, I think, an amazing voting system that's a liquid democracy concept so that anyone in the community can vote on how the resources of the community get used. So I think this is very important to make sure that we're not just a group of guys that control everything. We want the community to actually decide on this stuff. So that's the first project we're doing with IOHK. The second big one is the scaling study or scaling research that I mentioned about the block DAG protocol. So it's actually the IOHK scientists that are right now actually improving upon the academic research that's available on block DAGs. Because block DAGs, we realize, have the way that the protocol specifications are written right now is they have some limitations because they take these what we call like asymptotic assumptions for their mathematical proofs that work really well asymptotically, which really means to infinity. So if our system were just evaluating everything at infinity, this protocol would be very, very nice and tractable right now. But in the real world, we have a lot of non-asymptotic considerations to make. So actually, their scientists are improving the protocol. So this is very interesting stuff where we're so happy to work with them because they bring a whole different expertise to the team that we don't have on staff. We don't have a whole bunch of mathematicians on staff to evaluate these mathematical proofs and improve on them. But what we can do is we work with them, and our engineers can take this and now build the protocol. So those are the two really big projects. And actually, we haven't announced this yet, but I'm happy to say, so your viewers will be the first to hear. We actually have we're extending the research work that we have with IOHK into sidechaining. So our engineers that have been looking at our own solution now are working to import some of the technology that IOHK has already been doing for sidechain. So it's very, very lucky for us and great for IOHK as well is they're building like research and development, and we're taking that as a customer and implementing it on a live blockchain project. So it's a great relationship that we have with them.
And I heard you say about the voting system.
Yes.
The voting system that I ever read the objective of Cardano too. They want to have the voting system too. If you finish, the Cardano will use the same thing. The same
potentially. So it's not going to be the same. So the core will be similar, but then the way that we implement it that makes sense with our protocol will be different than the way that they implement it that makes sense. And here's what I love about Charles is a very values-driven person where we're trying to push this technology out to the world, and we're in a way it's part altruism where yes, like our community and our project benefits, but at the same time we want to give it to the world so that other communities and other projects could use the technology as well. So that's the IOHK perspective. We share that. So the technology we're importing from IOHK will definitely be used on Cardano as well, and then maybe other projects that want to work with IOHK. So I think it's really good because they're kind of like a core science team that's building this fascinating research, but then it can then go out into the operational blockchain space.
For voting system, for the other coin, they allow the user like me that hold the coin has a chance to vote.
Yeah.
I'm not sure to follow this concept.
So we follow that concept. So there's a few things that are very important from a game theory perspective on voting systems. One, you have to have people that have some stake, like some alignment of interest. So you as a stakeholder for Zen have some interest in seeing Zen succeed. So you want to do the right thing for Zen. If you have no Zen, what do you care? Right? But if you have some Zen, on average, you'll care a little bit more about what the project does. So you're a little bit more careful with how you're voting, right? And then also we solve with our voting system secret voting, where we don't want the voting process itself to influence the outcome of the elections. So we have secret ballots with our SNARK technology. So that's very important. And then the third thing We overcome voter apathy. Like in democracies that have voting, actually, one really big problem in democracies is voters just don't go out and vote. There's this apathy that we call it voter apathy. So what we do, it's kind of interesting, is we're going to pay people to vote. So if you own Zen, you can make Zen by setting up a secure node or super node, but then you can also make more Zen by voting with that same Zen stake. So that's a really important feature of our system, is we want to create as many ways for people to earn an income, but earn an income by actually doing valuable things that make the system itself, improve over time and grow. So that's how we're doing the voting system.
How can you count the voting system if I have a super node and other one has a secure node? What is the weight of the vote?
So the simplest way to do it is to just, your weight is based on how much Zen you have. Yeah, so that's the simplest way, right? Maybe it's not the perfect way, but it's the first order solution, right? So here's our motto, is we're not going to create perfect immediately, but we kind of start, we do something that makes sense, and then we can improve on that over time. So the first thing that makes the most sense in any voting system is the power of your vote is proportional to how much you own. And in a way, like on the extremes, it makes sense, right? If you have 1 Zen, maybe you don't have the same interest as someone who owns 1 million Zen. The person who owns 1 million Zen probably really cares what happens with the system,
exactly.
Right? And they really want to do well, right? So there's some logic here where it makes sense, but there's also some social questions that we have to answer. Is this fair? Because now a rich person has more say than, say, a poor person. And is that fair? Because maybe the poor person really wants the system to do well, and relatively speaking, they have a stake that's relatively very high for them, and the poor person maybe has so much money that even they have so much Zen, but it's such a little part of their wealth, maybe they don't care as much because to them it's trivial, even though they own a lot. So there are some social questions we have to answer here. We're just not going to do that immediately. It's going to be our longer term plan, but we do recognize that there are some social considerations we have to make. And we want this to be a fair system for everyone, not one that just rich people dominate. So, but actually, I have another call I have to go on in a couple minutes here. So, yeah, I know it's been so much fun talking that the time just flew.
Okay, the last question, Lord. What you think about the Bitmain that just launched the ASIC miner? The last question.
Yeah. This is the hardest question, right? You saved the hardest question for last. Okay, so I'll tell you, I'm not an ASIC hater. And this will be very controversial in our community because we're a community of GPU miners. So for people who went and invested a whole bunch of money in GPU miners, this ASIC that's Equihash mineable is devastating, and this sucks. But we have to take a step back and think, okay, big picture, we have a whole ecosystem here, and how do we make decisions that are responsible for the whole ecosystem? So ideally, we want to be as decentralized as possible with our mining. So we want to maintain GPU mining, and we want to be ASIC resistant. But I'll tell you, from a strategy perspective, is I don't want to make a quick decision without understanding the full consequences of the decision. So a lot of people in our community, or some people in our community, are trying to advocate that we very quickly hard fork into a different mining algorithm so that we can move away from just this Equihash algorithm that we have right now, maybe do some modifications to Equihash, maybe switch out to a completely different algorithm, maybe use an amalgamation of different algorithms like Dash does with their X11. All right, so there's a variety of things that we can do. But my big point is it's not a crisis. It truly is not a crisis. And we don't have to react today without understanding the full consequences of what we're doing. So we have to balance the full risk trade-off here. We have a bunch of risks on this ecosystem. And if we were to make a hard fork engineering decision that we don't fully understand because we're reacting to the ASIC threat, we could potentially devastate the system and introduce some other flaw in the system that is much worse than having ASICs mining Zencash. So we're doing this in a very methodical other alternatives that we have. And we're going to announce a solution when we're ready for it. We're not going to be rushed into making a decision just because all these other projects are making a decision right now. So we have Zuko with Zcash. I completely agree with him. he says there's a big mining race out there, and there's always going to be an ASIC. At some point, you can only delay the inevitable. So they're actually not going to react immediately to this. They're going to wait and see. So we have that perspective, but at the same time, we're also cultivating actively other options so that if one of the other options looks very promising, then we're ready to pivot into that when we know that it's actually safe to do. So I guess the big point is we know that this is a threat. We don't want to have centralization of mining. We don't want our GPU miners to lose all of their investment in their GPUs, right? So we want to protect our community, but we want to protect the full community as best as we can. So right now we have an open dialogue within our community, and it's very active, and people are voicing their opinion in different, from different stakeholders. And that's probably the most important thing, is that we listen to the community and we actually make a decision that's consistent with what people want. At the same time, I can tell you we're actively looking at algorithm development to see if we can come up with our own unique algorithm. So we're not just tweaking in Equihash or swapping in a different algorithm that's just going to be ASIC dominated 3 months from now. We're actually looking to work with some mathematicians to have a really good algorithm upgrade. And if this is feasible, then this would be a great path to have so that we actually have a long-term solution. And you can see, for us, it's all about long-term solutions and balancing risk and not just being forced to react to something immediately because people panic, right? And maybe that's one good thing is, we have a bunch of military officers on our project, so we don't panic very easily. We wait and we see what's going on and what decisions do we make that would be best for the community. So that's the long answer. So hopefully that's a good answer. We'll see. No matter what, there's going to be people that are not happy. So, well, what I can say is we definitely empathize and we definitely value the decentralization. We value our GPU mining community. So we're going to try to, make sure that they're taken care of. We're just going to do it in a responsible way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah, thank you so much. These were awesome questions. It was really nice talking to you. So I'm glad I could finally meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
All right. See ya.